Good morning. Can everyone hear me okay? Great. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. I'm delighted to talk to you about sustainability, and more importantly, thank you to all of you for the collective and individual work that you all do to make our neighborhoods, communities, and indeed our region a better place. I want to talk to you about a few things today. We're going to start with a little bit about why place matters. As a good planner, I've got to always start there. Some overview and thoughts on what sustainability means and what it is. We'll go through a few examples from our own work here at UB about sustainability in practice, and then I'll leave you with kind of how do we engage each other and do this work around sustainability. So that's sort of the roadmap for today. So place matters. It goes without saying that we live in a truly remarkable place. Hard to believe maybe after the coldest February in history and 7 feet of snowbanks, but indeed, we are at the doorstep of two of the Great Lakes. 20% of the world's available fresh water passes by us. 95% of the United States drinking water passes by our doorstep. And so we truly have a place that we need to be good stewards of. We also have one of the 7 wonders of the world in our Niagara Falls, frozen at the moment, but still beautiful nonetheless. And we have this beautiful scenery and a fantastic, rich landscape of a natural environment here in Buffalo, Niagara region. And it's not so hard then to imagine that maybe in a way sustainability sort of started right here. The Iroquois Confederacy, which was 5 to 6, depending on when you look at it, nation states coming together. And they're known for a lot of great things, but one of them is the great law, or the sovereign law that they'd established about thinking into the future and thinking about how all decisions need to affect not only what we're doing now, but how it's going to impact future generations. So one way we think about sustainability is that in every decision we make, we need to consider the impacts that's going to have on 7 generations into the future. And in fact, there has been some discussion that maybe we've even misinterpreted this a little bit, and in fact it's more about thinking 3 generations behind and honoring and recognizing the work that our forefathers have done, our own generation, and then 3 generations into the future. So thinking about that is the core of our kind of sustainability and the history of it. But with that great foundation, I think for a while our region kind of went off the tracks a little bit. So does anyone recognize this picture? Yes. Love Canal, absolutely. So short history, which I may botch a little bit here, but Hooker Chemical buried a bunch of chemical toxic waste. There were homes and schools built atop of it. Those contaminants leached into the ground, the water, the air, and was poisoning children and families in the area. But again, a good story here around empowerment and what can be done to address these issues. Lois Gibbs, a self-proclaimed housewife, really led a movement with her community to demand better and make a change. And of course, we know the Superfund really kind of took its roots here in this kind of disaster that occurred. Similarly, in a time of great prosperity and development, many great things, in kind of the 50s, this is an aerial shot of our Buffalo River. Fantastic development, but tremendous strain on our natural resources. Maybe not the most ideal outcomes for our ecology and our river. And again, another great story coming from this. So Stan Spiesiak, who was a jeweler by trade, but was known locally as Mr. Buffalo River, he loved his river and noticed that it was polluted and contaminated and wanted to do something about it. He convinced Lady Bird Johnson to come on a private tour, who she brought along LBJ and others. They took a bucket and dunked it into the river, and what came up was pretty appalling. And so LBJ and others took that back to Washington and really started founding and creating what would later become the Clean Water Act. Again, right here in Buffalo. This is why this place matters. And now, looking ahead, of course, we had the $1 million dredging project on our river. And this is what that same river looks like from that aerial shot today. So again, thinking through how far we've come. So thinking about sustainability, and what is it when we're talking about sustainability? What do we mean by that word? And I think one of the greatest strengths about sustainability and one of its greatest weaknesses is that it has a lot of definitions, a lot of overarching concepts that we can think about. We'll share some of those with you. I wanted to start with what sustainability is not. So if in your mind the first image that comes up is something like this, or worse, something that's showing the earth burning and disasters and really scary, horrific imaging, it's really neither of those in our view. Sustainability is no longer about the scare tactics of climate change or the kind of tree hugging sort of we must come together and chain ourselves to trees. Okay? And the real kind of first definition of sustainability came out of the Brundtland Commission. And I might get this wording wrong here, but in essence, it's meeting the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It's a really kind of nice, concise way to think about sustainability. And again, very aligned with that kind of initial great law or sovereign law of the Iroquois Confederacy, right? One of my favorite definitions is actually an African proverb, very simple, enough for all forever. So making sure that we have enough to meet our needs, but going forward, there's enough for everybody else forever as well. Another way to think about sustainability is that it's really tied to this capacity to endure. And in a way, endure is kind of a dry word or definition, right? It can almost be a little bit negative. It's about sticking with it in a really hard situation, enduring, getting through it. But if you think about it in a positive term, it's about thinking of the future and making sure that what we're doing now, again, is allowing us to continue to go forward in a way that's good for all of us. And then resilience. We hear a lot about resilience lately, especially as the impacts of climate change are more upon us. We see extremes in weather, we see it impacting our lifestyles. And resilience is really about being able to kind of adapt and react to an imbalanced world, right? Sustainability maybe is about finding balance in the world and balancing our needs and our resources, and resilience is perhaps about reacting and responding in a way to those imbalances that we see in the world. You probably have seen the Venn diagram about sustainability, sort of people, planet, profit, or environment, economy, and equity. This is another way to think about it, and one of the reasons we use this kind of diagram is because really the environment is the most important part. And I don't mean that in the sense that we got to save the trees and we got to be better to our environment, but we are the environment. Without the environment, we don't exist. So we are part of that system. And we really want to make sure our environment is supporting us as a people and our equity and our society, and we do that through our economy. So this is one way that we think about how sustainability comes together. It's taking that kind of that three-legged stool and changing the kind of thinking around it a little bit. And of course, sustainability at some level is about our Earth. So it was really remarkable when we were able to see the first satellite images of Earth from afar. You know, before that we had, of course, conceptual ideas and drawings, but the real satellite images that came in kind of hit home for people that we only have this one place, this one opportunity. We have this Earth that we collectively share and need to take care of. So keeping in mind that sustainability at its core is about that component. But in a way it's not. It's about a whole bunch more. It's really about this. Shameless plug for my adorable children. I think I walked 2 miles that day to go to the playground, and all she wanted to do was sit in the tree and eat an apple. So, good lesson there. Sustainability is about this. Our Earth is going to be okay. We have gone through 5 or 6 natural extinction cycles. The Earth will reinvent itself. But we have something to gain and lose in thinking about sustainability. And it's not a scare tactic, but this is about us as people. This is about how we care for each other, how we empathize with each other, how we want to help each other succeed in our own generations and generations going forward. So keeping in mind the basis about sustainability being the environment and the earth being a component, but that it's really about people at the end of the day. So a few thoughts about what does sustainability look like in practice. And my most recent experience is here at UB, so I'll use some examples from here. In 2007, we signed on to the American College and University President's Climate Commitment, the worst acronym ever. But in short, what that means is we committed to being climate neutral by 2030. And to do that, through the great work of Dean Shibley, the Planning School, the Environmental Stewardship Committee, and many others, some of you may have been part of that process, the first climate action plan was created and put into place in 2009. This was the how-to and the bigger picture and the future thinking behind how we would get to climate neutrality and really begin to work towards embedding sustainability into our practices. And we've done a lot and made really great progress in these areas. We think about sustainability at the university through what we call the core model. So we tend to think about teaching our curriculum and how we can educate the next generation of sustainability leaders through our curriculum, how we can ensure that we're reaching more people and advancing sustainability literacy. We address global challenges and find solutions to global problems through our research. We work to engage our internal and our external communities and partner to identify best practice and share stories of what's working and not working. And then, of course, we better be walking the talk, so to speak. We better be making sure that we're setting the bar high in our own operations here as a university. With nearly 40,000 people, 3 campuses, hundreds of miles of roads, we're basically a small city. So what we do and what our impacts have are really important to our work. A few quick examples. So whether it's Jason Briner, who takes students up to the Arctic in Greenland to measure the disappearing ice as part of our curriculum, or it's the very first year engineering students who are all required to develop their own wind turbine and then see how well they work. Through our research, many of you know Samina Raja, Dr. Raja, who's working to really advance the issues of food security in our region and beyond. Or something you might not think about, but business students doing research around how we can market and expand the market for fuel cell vehicles. In our engagement, we work very hard to partner with our external community, the Environmental Alliance, of which many of you know or are part of. 100 different environmental organizations coming together to have one voice to advance sustainability for the region. So we make sure we're partnering and being a good partner with our external community. Similarly, in the more private or business sector, the Sustainable Business Roundtable, bringing together leaders and businesses around the region to develop sustainability plans and move in that direction in many of the big local companies. Of course, One Region Forward, the efforts that we've seen that we're here for today. And all of this is part of our part in helping create what we've been hearing, the new Buffalo. Finally, in our own operations, tremendous success through many partners across the university in making sure that our operations are really beginning to incorporate sustainability moving forward. This is Greiner Hall. It was the first LEED Gold building, residential building in all of the SUNY system. In a little under 4 or 5 years, we put into place 5 LEED Gold buildings on campus, expanding our sustainable transportation options for students. We also compost 1 million pounds of food a year in our dining halls, pre and post-consumer. These are just a few examples. There are many more that I could have drawn from. And then, of course, the solar strand. Huge achievement, because it brings together the operations, the engagement, the research, the teaching. How many of you guys have been to the solar strand on North Campus? A few? What a success that's been. Having Walter Hood come and commission that piece of art, not only does it create enough power to power 700 student apartments, but it is the most publicly accessible solar array in the world. This is a crazy and amazing concept that we can go and touch and feel and be part of where our energy is produced. That's flipping it on its head. It's not something you do with a coal generating power plant or a nuclear plant. This is really changing the whole idea of how we use energy and make it a publicly accessible space. So finally, I wanted to say a few things about looking forward and how we actually can think about how we do this work. How do we engage each other to continue to advance sustainability in our lives, in our work, and in our communities? Again, starting with what it's not. So, as a mom, I can say I have done the empirical research, and yelling is not effective, though I wish it was. I think for a long time, we really tried to scream loudest about these issues and really tried to convince people through fact and really important ideas and concepts. And what we're learning is that maybe there's a different way forward. So I always think about our work around sustainability in this way. As people, our behaviors are driven by our thoughts and reinforced by our culture. So it's not just about awareness and educating people and sharing information. It's about hitting on these three areas. If we want to change behavior at an individual and collective level, we've got to begin to change our thinking, and we've got to reinforce sustainability in our culture. So it's less about outreach and awareness, and it's much more about kind of fostering that sustainability culture and finding ways to kind of reinforce the communities and the feel-goodness that's coming up around sustainable action. It's more about communication, connection, collaboration. It's about inviting people to take part in our projects, getting them excited about things that they can do in their own communities. It's about broadening the topic to make sure it's not just about environment, and it's about doing good for each other together. It's about empathy and advancing our overall goals. It's about supporting someone else in their project and their goals. So these are a few examples of how we think about sustainability and engagement going forward. And finally, I'll leave you with this. My personal thought is that sustainability, it's about more, not less. I think we get overly focused on reduction and conservation, and you shouldn't be using a plastic bag or a coffee cup. Forgive my bad environmental tendencies here. I think those things are important, but I think it's about more. What more can we achieve by being sustainable? Who are we more as people, individually and collectively, by being sustainable? And of course, my favorite, it's a little bit blurry here, but so what if it's a big hoax and we create a better world for nothing? Right? So if sustainability is about creating a better world, and maybe some people don't believe in all of the science behind it, so what? We're creating a better world together because it's the right thing to do, and it's who we are, and it's part of our value system, which is why it's so encouraging to see you here today, because that's what you guys are doing in your own lives and in your own projects and own communities. So keeping that in mind, I'll leave you on that note about how we can be creating a better world together through sustainability. Thank you.